Hey, Russell here, Prime Motion Training. Thanks for joining me for episode number 8 of Let's Talk Police Applications. In this chat, I want to focus in on the interview stages. Now, this could relate to a psychological interview or, of course, the selection panel interview as part of an application process. Now, there's a question that comes up from applicants quite often about answering specific types of questions in these interviews, and that's what we'll talk about in today's episode, so let's get into it. Alright, so the question that comes up quite often is, do I have to share work examples or can I share personal experiences? Now, this question relates specifically to when the applicant is asked to share examples, so that tends to relate to behavioural based evidence questions. So it's not typical questions like, why do you want to join the police force? It's more things like, can you give me an example of where you've had to communicate under pressure? Or something along those lines, where they're looking for an example or an experience that you've had and they want you to share the detail of that experience. And of course, they want you to focus on the topic of the question. And in the example I just gave, that would be around communication skills. So do I share a personal or a professional example? Well, you might think that because it's a job interview, you would need to share job-related experiences, and that's not necessarily the case. And it really comes down to listening very carefully to the way in which the question is worded. Let's take an example where you might be asked where you have contributed to a team in a professional environment. Now, of course, the wording of that question is, when have you contributed to a team in a professional environment? Now, professional would obviously relate to a work experience. Now, even if you're a high-profile sports person or an athlete and you're professionally playing that particular sport and you're getting paid to play that sport, well, that's still a professional or work-related context. Now, not too many applicants will be in that situation, but the point is to listen carefully for the wording of the question, because if the question is worded in such a way where they want an example of where you contributed to a team in a professional environment, then naturally that means you need to provide a work experience or a work example to share. Now, it could be that it's very, very specific like that, or maybe it's a little bit more general. It might be quite an open type of question where they may simply say, look, we need our police officers to be quite resilient because it can be a very stressful and demanding job at times. Could you provide us with an example from your own experience that shows you are a resilient person? Now, that's pretty general and fairly generic in its nature, so you could choose either a professional example to share where you've gone through something extremely challenging in a professional context and you've shown resilience to be able to deal with that situation and come out the other end. Or you might pick something that's more personal. Now, something like resilience, I tend to think that personal examples of where you've shown resilience can be a little bit more emotional, and I think can tend to carry a little bit more weight than demonstrating how you've gone through a really challenging work period or a challenging project at work. So think about whether it's a specific or a general question. And then you really need to keep in mind the question of, well, what's the point? Why are they asking these sort of questions anyway? And ultimately, they're asking these questions because they want evidence. They want proof that you have these particular qualities or skills or values and that you're actually utilizing these things in real situations. So when you're answering the question and you're trying to decide, well, which one of these experiences, personal or professional, is a better way to go, keep in mind that what you're trying to do is to provide that evidence in order to be able to prove your case. You need to prove your case. You need to prove to the interviewer that you have these skills and qualities and that you're applying them in real situations. Okay, again, so it could be a professional setting that is the most, appropriate example to share or experience to share. But again, it also could be a personal experience. And again, I think something like resilience could be a good one to use a personal example. If you've got some type of real hardship that you've had to go through and you've had to cope with, and you can show that you've taken specific steps to help you manage that hardship and you've come out the other end. Yep. To finish off, if you're a little bit concerned about, I don't know if I should be sharing personal experiences in a job interview, and what I've explained so far isn't convincing you, one of the things you could do is to seek permission to share that personal experience. So for example, if they asked you, when was the last time you had to show resilience, you could say, look, I've had a personal experience recently that I think is a really good example and provides some evidence of my resilience and my ability to cope. Would it be okay if I share that personal experience? Now at that point, of course, they're going to answer you, look, that would be fine, tell us about that situation. Or they may say, well, look, we're really more interested in professional examples. Do you have a work example that you could share? Well, obviously, if they say that, then you must follow up with a work example. So if you're thinking about good personal experiences that you could share, maybe have a backup that's work-related that you could follow up with if they happen to say, look, we'd rather hear examples from your current career or your work situation. But I think ultimately they're looking for evidence. And whether that evidence comes from a professional example or a personal example, if it provides that good evidence, it proves your case, it convinces them that you have the skills and qualities or the values that they're asking about, I don't think you're going to get too much pushback if you give a really good quality answer. Okay, so as always, I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I'll chat to you again soon. I'm going to focus a little bit on interview questions in the next couple of episodes, so look forward to having you join me then. The next one will be episode 9, so I'll catch you then. Cheers.